Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video I just wanted to basically go over all the pros and cons of breastfeeding and what exactly it's like for those of you who've never done it before, and stuff that I wish that I had known before doing it myself. So first of all, breastfeeding is definitely not just like a calm, angelic experience that you imagine it is before you have a baby. I would say eventually it turns into that, but it's a lot of work at the beginning to kind of learn how to do it and get used to how it works and teach your body what it needs to do for your baby. So it's a lot of work at the beginning for sure. Right after you have your baby, your milk isn't all the way in yet, so the baby will eat the colostrum, which is like the pre-milk. And then like a day or two later, your milk just all of a sudden comes in, like all at once. So your chest gets really big and it is like rock hard because there's so much milk in there, because your body wants to make sure that it has enough for what the baby needs. Then you feed your baby for the first time, and it might be difficult for some people to get a correct latch, which is basically the way that your baby attaches to your nipple. Some babies have a harder time doing that than others. Luckily, my baby pretty much got it right away, but I know there are lots of moms out there who have trouble getting the latch. So basically, your body is just making milk nonstop. It's like a milk factory. So you feed your baby, and then in like 2 hours, your breasts are full again, ready for your baby to eat again. This happens like every 2 to 3 hours until your body starts to learn how often your baby eats and how much your baby eats. So once your body starts to learn, then your body will start to get in more of a rhythm of what it needs to do. So at the beginning, while your body is learning this, there's no pretty way to put it. Basically, milk gets everywhere. You're just like a milk fountain. And when I first started breastfeeding, milk would get all over my bed, and it was just like a milk bath every day for me and my baby. Once my body started learning how much my baby needed and getting into that rhythm, then I wouldn't make too much milk and there would be less messes. So yeah, that's kind of the process of what the breastfeeding experience is like at the very beginning, like when you first give birth. I'm gonna jump into what I think are the cons of breastfeeding. Number one, it's actually pretty annoying when you first start breastfeeding because you have to feed your baby super often. Like I was saying, like every 2 to 3 hours or something like that. So it's basically a full-time job, and you never get off of work and get to go home. You're just on the clock all the time. It's not like a short thing either. You put them there, and whether or not you have problems with the baby's latch, you have to deal with that. And then once it's going well, they feed on one side for like 20 minutes, and then they will feed on the other side for like 20 minutes. So it's like almost an hour-long session every time you sit down to feed them. The other thing that I would say is a con is getting used to the letdown that happens whenever you feed your baby. It kind of hurts a little bit. It's not overwhelmingly painful or anything. It's kind of like someone squeezing your breast really tight or something. Every time your baby starts sucking, your boobs basically activate and they turn on this letdown reflex, which is basically letting down all the milk that it's holding up there. So when that letdown happens, it doesn't feel great. So getting used to that can be a little bit difficult as well. Also, your baby might gum you really hard, so that could be a little bit painful as well. If you don't feed your baby, like if you're out on a date with your significant other or you're just running errands without your baby, if you don't feed your baby at the scheduled time that you're supposed to feed them, first of all, your boobs get really full of milk because they're like expecting you to be feeding your baby at that time. And also, sometimes your letdown reflex will actually happen at the time that you usually feed your baby. So that's really unfortunate if you get your letdown reflex in public, because then you get milk all over your shirt and that's not fun. So that's what breast pads are for. But yeah, your chest will hurt because it will be so full of milk, and you will have to pump that milk out. Otherwise, it hurts. And that leads me into my next con, because if you're away from your baby, you have to pump. That can be difficult as well, because you have to bring your pump with you wherever you go, and bring like a bottle to put the milk in, and then like a little cooler to keep it cold. And so it's a whole process. So it's much easier just basically having your baby around at all times when your baby's brand new. And for my last con, breastfeeding unfortunately will most likely affect the way that your chest looks when it's all said and done. If you think about it, your baby is on there probably like 8 times a day for a long time, pulling on your breast. So yeah, you can imagine the kind of effect that that has on skin. It's just what happens when you breastfeed. So that can be a con as well. All right, so on to my pros. So once your child starts getting older, it actually gets a lot easier and way less time consuming, and it also gets more meaningful because it's not as much work and they're not feeding as often. So like I was saying earlier, your body learns the routine that you start doing with your baby, and it learns how much milk to make so that you don't have an excess amount of milk that you don't need. So once that happens fully, you pretty much won't have any more messes because there won't be extra milk. So yeah, that's definitely a pro. Also, when your baby starts getting older and they start eating real food, then obviously they won't be breastfeeding as often because they will be full from the other foods that they're eating. For me, that was a big relief because I didn't have to feed my son every 3 to 4 hours like I was doing before, which can get really tiring. Another pro is that once they start getting older, they become way more active, and basically you don't ever get to hold them or cuddle them because they're so crazy and they have so much energy. They just want to run around all the time, and they don't want to be held and they don't want to be hugged. But if you're breastfeeding, they want to breastfeed. So they want to spend that time with you, and they want you to hold them and cuddle them, which is really nice. So that's a definite pro to breastfeeding as well. Another pro is that you really get used to it. Eventually it just becomes as much of a habit as using the restroom or brushing your teeth or taking a shower or something like that. It's just something you do every day. And eventually it doesn't feel like a huge responsibility anymore. It's just something that you do. And for my last pro that I can think of is breastfeeding is an awesome tool to use for calming down your baby or your toddler, depending on how long you choose to breastfeed. It's a really easy way to get them to calm down whenever they are having a breakdown or a temper tantrum or just a lot of emotions and you've tried everything else you could think of to help them calm down. It's just a really nice tool to have in those situations. So that pretty much sums it up. So it's all a learning process. Like, it takes time for your body to learn and for you to learn your baby and develop this system that works for both of you. So once you work all those kinks out after the first couple months or so, it starts to get much easier. The only thing that doesn't really change for a while is how often you have to do it. You have to do it really often at the beginning for like the first at least 7 to 9 months or something. And then after that, they start eating more solids and you don't have to breastfeed them as often. So once you get to that point, that's when I really started enjoying breastfeeding more. Once my son started eating solids pretty often, like 3 meals a day or something, I started breastfeeding him only first thing in the morning, before his nap, and before bedtime. And that's still what we're doing. And he is 21 months old, almost 2 years old. At this point in the breastfeeding process, it's much different than at the very beginning. A lot different. First of all, my chest isn't ever super full of milk anymore, so I never get that pain of engorgement. So that is really nice. and they don't ever leak anymore because he doesn't drink enough milk in a day for them to ever overflow like that. So honestly, I don't even really notice that my body is making milk until it's time to feed him. And when I do feed him, it definitely doesn't take an hour anymore like it did in the beginning. It only takes like 10 or 15 minutes max. The only thing that isn't so wonderful is that breastfeeding for 21 months definitely changes the physical appearance of your breasts, but I would say it's definitely worth all of that to give your child all the countless benefits of breast milk. So yeah, my voice is going out from talking so much. So that's pretty much everything I have to say about breastfeeding. I definitely don't regret it at all. I'm super glad that I did it for as long as I did and am doing, and I will do it for any kids I may have in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out my video from last Monday. By the way, I make videos every Monday. Also check out this video that I really like and I think it's really funny. And don't forget to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up and I will see you guys next Monday. Bye!